Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Good evening, all.
hey,
Getting a little nippy out there.
Ooh,
Mhm.
Oh,
Winter.
nippy in here too.
Yeah.
I'm sitting on top of my heater.
Oh, so it's warm where you are.
Mhm.
Almost.
Mhm.
The bottom half.
Mhm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we have everyone but Melody. Melody said she'd be a few minutes late. So why don't we go ahead and call a meeting to order?
Okay,
That's good with everybody?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have an agenda, one possible change in agenda. We do have the police department budget, but Kristen's not going to be available for that tonight. She ran into an issue this afternoon. So we won't be going over that tonight.
isn't the police on the schedule for February 8th anyways? Didn't we move it there?
Susie, you're in charge of the schedule, so
Um,
you're probably the one who knows.
I showed it. Let's see, what do we?
It's on the agenda for tonight.
Yeah, that's what it was on the agenda for tonight, and we did talk about scheduling it. And I know Becky did reach out to Kristen to have it done tonight. But then she ran into an issue.
I showed it being substituted out for the collector that came already, so that on February 8th, it was going to be accountant police, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah.
Well, since she's not here tonight, should we put it there?
You're suggesting,
Oh, I have that too, Susie. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I didn't see it when Jim called earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah. Collector is crossed out. Police was substituted in when collector came to the 12. When she came early. I can't tell you. exactly.
December 1.
December 1, right.
Well, so anyway, should we put police in on February 8th with accountant?
That would be helpful.
okay, so
Can we
February,
get that, can we get that, excuse me, can we get that budget ahead of time? So we
Yes.
can review it?
And that was the other problem. She was pulling it, she had it pulled all together earlier, but she had trouble with the new form, but now she had an event she had to attend to, so she can't be here. And we will get it out probably by Friday, maybe tomorrow to everyone. So it'll be in plenty of time of February 8th.
Excellent.
okay, so February 8th, we've got accountant and police.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go through the minutes of our last meeting, which would have been the 14th.
Yeah.
Yeah. December 14th was our last official meeting.
Yes, sorry, I got these out very late.
Yeah, I took a look through them. I didn't really see anything that stood out as an issue. Yeah,
Susie sent me some updates to the attendee list that I either missed or hadn't like fully spelled out.
Bob,
Yeah, I got a couple things. One minor thing.
Yeah.
Number 6, expense, you have brake. The brakes need to be repaired. Well, I don't think they were that bad, so they're just the actual brakes to stop them.
Thank you.
Number 4, tax class, I think it says here on number 4, the Kevin Rudd reports that part and due to our free cash allocations and department budgets have been level funded. I think that you should mention, and I did mention at the meeting, that the assessment method did benefit us on the plus side there as revenue.
Yes.
So it reduced our expenses because of our new assessment. I think that's worth putting in there. I don't know if it's worth putting in there retroactively. That we
No,
also.
I remember you saying that.
The
So I'm going
police,
to add,
the police line, the police department was underspent, so that did help us as well. So I think that might be worth, because we had the chief left when, well before the end of the fiscal year
Yeah,
last
but
year.
that doesn't affect the tax rate, does it?
It
We didn't
affected
lower
the,
the, bu-
it affected,
No,
the-
free
well,
cash.
probably not. The
It
assessment
impacts free
method, I
cash.
didn't mention, right. So that didn't reflect any change in the budget. But didn't it affect the taxes? I mean, I just went to free cash, didn't affect the taxes at all, you're right.
right, yeah, it goes to free cash like all the other unspent items.
Okay,
That's why,
but the assessment method did help us.
So I just
Yeah.
added a sentence, Bob, to the end of the paragraph, Bob Groves adds that changes to the regional assessment method also contributed to a reduced tax rate.
Great, thank you.
And
I
in
don't have
the
anything
heading,
else.
in the heading, it was a Tuesday meeting, not a Wednesday meeting.
Gotcha, okay.
good catch.
I was just, and this is maybe just for clarification, I don't know if it needs a change. I thought about it and then I thought it might be okay. On item 4, the tax classification hearing, G, paragraph G, it says Kevin Rudin reports the Shutesbury bill is sitting in committee.
Yeah.
Now, people, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to put myself in the perspective of people reading this that aren't part of our meeting, and would they know what committee means? Or,
Legislative committee?
Yeah, say Massachusetts Legislative Committee.
Yeah, that would be good. That's a good qualifier.
Good idea.
Mhm.
And I had a question on 2H, where Walter got the quote approximately of 2,200. Did he
Mhm.
also say that that could be covered in the equipment line?
I don't
Susie, what
remember.
was the quote for?
To install a new
For antenna.
antenna when the Vertex
Yeah.
tower is installed. So I remember him saying that there's no cost because it's part of the agreement.
Like
and
no
it
rental
says-
fee, right?
It says
No
there's no
rental fee.
rental fee, but I also thought I remembered him saying that he thought that 2,200 was gonna come out of the fire department's equipment line. Did anybody else remember that?
I don't
I
remember.
faintly recall that, yeah. Yeah, I think he had the money to do that. Whenever the tower went up, because the tower, there's been some delay on putting up the tower.
Yeah.
But there always has been money for it because we decided some time ago that we wanted to get free access to that tower for all the obvious reasons.
Yeah, I guess just in terms of expenditures, if it, maybe I should just check with him if he said that.
Yeah.
I'll
Could
check.
you do that? Yeah, and then
fine.
just email me, Susie, and
Yep.
if that was correct, and then I can just add that before I
All
send
right.
it to.
Okay.
Can I
Thanks.
just make one other comment, AJ?
Yeah.
Just when you are discussing, like, for example, the library budget review on number 3.
Yeah.
It says, Mary Ann recommends a small increase from 17th. I mean, I don't think we need to put in a qualitative adjective there. She recommends an increase. And, there's further down in another department, a very small increase. I think those kinds of adjectives are really not necessary. There's an increase. This is the amount. That was the request.
Right.
I don't think we need to put a qualitative adjective in there.
Hmm.
Do you think that makes sense?
What do others think?
Let me just see here.
I don't think it's a
On the
big
fire
issue.
department C, most other budget items are staying the same or increasing a very small amount. Like I don't know.
I think it's
Well, I
helpful
think-
information.
I think where there's numbers, when you can see it's moving from 17 to 18, then you can see that it's a smaller amount. But in the case of the fire department, he didn't give any specific numbers.
Right.
We're just stating that the other ones are fairly small. Basically, what that is saying is they're not material. They're not worth even almost discussing.
I buy
But I
that.
agree with your first points on the library. Because the numbers are there and we can already see the magnitude, what's the point of having an additional qualifier?
Yeah.
So I'll just change it to Mary Ann recommends an increase. So on and so forth. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other changes, comments on the minutes?
Thanks for getting all those details in there, AJ.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
AJ, really excellent minutes.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Very much appreciated.
Sure,
Yes.
sure.
I'll make a motion, we approve them as amended.
At this point, can we?
I second.
But weren't we going to modify them based on your conversation with Walter, or are we just going to cover
Okay,
that?
pending that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Pending that.
So
So what
we
do we
can,
do? We wait
can we
till-
approve them pending a closing discussion between AJ and Walter?
Not. So
Yeah,
we're
I'm
not
gonna-
going to make, whatever we find out, we don't necessarily want in the minutes. Is that what we're saying?
No, I had suggested that we put that in the minutes because we sort of want to track how that's intended to be paid for.
Then we should put this on hold until the next meeting, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let's just vote on it at the next meeting.
Okay,
Okay,
And you can send us out the updated version, so that'd be good.
Ready?
yeah, one of, and I know we talked about this, is that, Becky, go ahead, Becky.
I was just gonna add, Walter was talking about the tower at the emergency management meeting last night. And it appears there are additional installation costs that he is sorting out with the tower provider. And also, you know, it has to get installed, which will come at a cost on top of the 2,200. So he is sorting out the full details, and maybe we can get the full picture from him. I know he doesn't have all the costs that might be included yet, but he has quotes out to people.
so
Yeah.
that money was just for the equipment?
I believe it was only for the antenna, the 2,200, and
And the
Um,
transmitter,
yeah.
transceiver?
Yeah. I think, yeah, and there's also, it has to be stored in either a box or a building. And the cost of the box or the building, they're trying to find, they might be able to get a box from another municipality because Franklin County is taking down towers right now from their
Mhm.
old radio system. So that Walter's trying to get a box for free that can be mounted, because that's an additional cost to the originally specified items.
So they don't want, the tower folks don't want our equipment in their hut, is what you're saying?
I believe that's the case.
No.
Just, Becky, just to echo what you're saying, he also said last week, or when we saw him, he wasn't sure where he was gonna get his power. There were a lot of unresolved questions that
Yeah.
he was looking to solve. or to
Right,
answer.
and that's
So
the additional.
we don't know the bottom
engineering.
line until he gets those questions answered.
You got it. Yep.
So we have to just suspend that thing from, at this point until we get information, right?
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Becky, do you know if Kevin, we did talk at our last meeting about Kevin coming back to this meeting to go over the tax rate recap. Do you know if he's,
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not make that request to him.
but we can, it's probably too late for now. We could probably tack that on to the next meeting
Okay,
if he's not available.
yeah, he probably has a conflict, but I can find out.
Okay,
Did you guys, was that mentioned while he was at the meeting?
yeah, yeah, when we were going through the tax classification hearing results at the end of that discussion, we talked about him coming back to talk about the tax rate recap.
Well, maybe he just said he was gonna give us the final information, send it to us,
Under
Yeah.
4H.
because he pretty much had it in hand, but it wasn't officially settled yet, but. he
Yeah,
said-
that's possible. That's possible.
I think he was just saying he was gonna send us the information when
Yeah.
it was settled and it was, set and legal.
And it is, the tax bills have gone out.
I saw that.
Didn't we all?
Did.
Yeah, All right, I placed a text. I'll let you know if I get a response.
Okay,
I can try to call him too.
okay, so we'll go back through these minutes next week after AJ and Walt have a chance to talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Regional school, follow up from our Friday's meeting. Any thoughts, comments, reactions? How things
Personally, I
went,
think we did well. I thought
how
we did
things
okay.
went, how we go from here, whatnot. Yeah,
You know, Peter Denlow made a statement which surprised the hell out of me. He said that he didn't see how any community that's fancies itself to be progressive wouldn't support a method of assessment that was based on ability to pay. That was brand new from him, because he was the guy that was threatening us with getting out of the region last year, wasn't he?
He said something like that last year at the school committee meeting, not at our meeting. So he has been speaking that way to the school committee. He
Right, but
didn't
not to the
say
full
that.
town meeting.
Yeah,
That was
But
great. That surprised me. It pleased me.
I was
Yeah.
thinking we might send a letter to the regional school committee to thank them for the discussion that showed concern for our perspective.
What would be the benefit of that?
A way to acknowledge, so Peter Demling is the vice chair, and him making that comment in that public meeting, I think is an important statement to support, that it was put at that public meeting.
I'm not sure I like the optics of it, though. I don't know.
yeah, I guess there was a lot of other comments that were on the other side that came out during that meeting also. right?
Not by the Amherst Regional School Committee. I mean,
No, it was by Andy.
Yeah, it was Andy. It was Andy and it was Lynn.
Right. And he's not on the, they are not on the regional school committee. And that's, I mean, it was clear from Lynn's comments, she feels the school committee wasn't listening to the limits that the town council wanted to impose. And I feel like what the people that were on the regional school committee said, things like, we're trying to keep this budget in a, to take care of the kids in a competitive market, and that the assessment could consider the ability to pay. The school committee, to me, it seemed like made clear, strong comments.
I think one of the, Becky, you're on mute.
You're
What are you gonna
speaking-
say?
I just, Kevin responded. He said he's only responsible for page 1 of the recap that he went through last time. I don't recall him going through the recap last time. Do you?
No, he said he was going to talk about it this time or next
Okay.
time.
He said, if you really need me, I can join at 7:30.
We can't put that, do you think that that's okay to put it because it's under tax classification hearing results? Is that why you think it can be on tonight?
It's pretty different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
there was, we talked to him about the results of the hearing, did we not? And everything was
Yeah.
set. Yeah, well, only one tax rate,
Yeah.
right? I think the only things that were open after we saw the recap, right? We have the recap.
I think.
So the only thing that I think there was to follow up was what we read about the state legislature ruling on our tax break for a certain class. I forget exactly what it
Yeah.
was. I think that's the only open issue with him, is where is the state on that? And are we going to be able to implement that for FY23?
I agree with that. That's the circuit breaker issue.
Yes.
Weren't there two competing ways to do that, and the legislature wasn't that the case? I sort of recall that.
But we've already put in our,
Or, yeah, yeah.
ours, so we're already in line to get ours passed ahead of DOR making it a
Statewide.
standard, a
Yeah.
statutory standard,
Once the legislature agrees, right?
right?
But-
Okay.
Isn't it true, Becky, that there's still decisions to be made by the town and how it's implemented if it goes forward, right? In terms of
There
what,
will be annual decisions
right,
every year, but the whole program will be implemented, and then there will be decisions on the level of support.
Yeah.
That will be annual and made by the select board.
okay, good.
So, okay. Are we all set with that?
So
Yeah,
the
I don't,
message back to Kevin is, we were a little confused. You've already covered the recap. Is
Yeah.
that true?
I
Okay,
think so, yeah.
yeah, I don't see us needing him to come back.
Yeah, I
either.
don't either.
It's in the minutes. It's in the minutes from our last meeting too, that he would come back to our next meeting. It's under 4H.
Right.
So that's,
Okay.
so not sure exactly what that meant.
I thought it was
That's
about the
AJ.
legislature.
Yeah. Of course, I can't
Because the
remember
legislature
now.
was supposedly, the legislature was voting on December 30th, right? Isn't that what
Yeah.
it says in the
Yeah,
minutes?
Yes.
that's,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes,
so
that-
he's gonna come back and report to us what they did.
that makes sense.
so that's about that's not the
Abatement.
recap,
Right.
That's-
Circuit breaker.
yeah.
Right.
the circuit breaker
Right.
issue.
It's the
Yes.
senior exemption, yeah.
Should we make a change to the minutes then?
Sure.
All right. All right, where is that? Okay. All right, so Kevin will come back at a future meeting to discuss implementation of the seniors tax exemption.
Circuit breaker, senior circuit breaker
Senior
exemption.
circuit breaker.
Okay, back to our discussion on this past Saturday.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted, I was very encouraged, but my question is so we're waiting for the school committee to decide what the budget amount will be, and they already said that they endorsed the 3.2 million. Are they're the ones who are going to determine which assessment method will be implemented? So
Yeah.
do we know when we're going to hear that, find out about that?
They will-
January 18th.
They will be
Well-
discussing it on the 18th, so they said that people could go to the meeting and listen to the discussion.
And then on the 19th, we'll know what we should be putting in our budget.
Yeah.
Although we might not agree with it, we know what they're going to be expecting us to put in our budget.
Well, they might not decide that night on both issues. They might decide on the budget that night and the assessment at a following meeting. We're
Okay.
just uncertain.
Becky,
It
I
wasn't
have a
very-
memory from last year that there was like 2 consecutive meetings. One is where the regional school committee discusses and maybe debates a couple of different models, but then there's like a budget hearing that happens after where they've sort of taken that step that we're describing, where they've got a recommended budget and an assessment model. Is that your expectation as well? Yeah.
It's usually the beginning of March when they have that hearing. It's determined by, I mean, they back into that date, and it's
Yeah.
usually end of February, beginning of March. Did you all hear Mike Morris talk about a potential additional meeting of the 4 towns?
Definitely, he said.
yes, yeah.
So I think that would be between the January 18th meeting and that hearing that'll be early March. Because I think it sounds like they want more input.
Just, my impression was, and maybe I'm mistaken, but we're definitely going to have another 4-town meeting. And on the agenda of that meeting is going to be the assessment method. And there's going to be more talk about it, and people are going to get back, towns are going to get back and say whatever it is they have to say on the subject, and that's going to be part of the process. So was that not true or what?
I think that could be true. I think last year they had a similar plan, but the school committee resolved it and we never had the third meeting.
Most years we do have 2 meetings, but this year we had a special meeting early to talk about assessments that was supposed to be out of that, a different scope. So to have another meeting would make sense because that's typically what we do. I was surprised also that there was nobody putting pressure on the budget like there was last year. Last year, recall, everybody was complaining about the price per pupil, how we compared to Long Meadow. And this year, everybody who spoke said they want to keep the level of education high. They want to support the competitiveness of the school. So I was actually surprised that there was really no conversation on decreasing the budget. And then the one other thing, and then I'm done, I promise.
But didn't Lynn,
Right.
I mean, didn't she make the point that she was concerned that the budget didn't meet their requirement of a 2.5, was it 2.5%
Yeah,
Yeah.
increase?
yeah,
And
she
Which
did.
there was that.
2.5. And she said the per pupil spending why is high. Why is that high? So it got brought up, but certainly not by anybody on the school committee.
And what was really interesting about that, you're right, I forgot about that. I should have mentioned that. What's really interesting that is if they went to full regional agreement, 5-year rolling average method, even going to that method, their increase was over 2.5. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they're expecting to get done. It would have to be to cut the budget. I'm done. Sorry.
As a practical matter, the financial officers of the town of Amherst are the ones that are going to set the amount of money that they're going to spend, not the school committee. That's the way it works, legally. So the school committee makes an ask, they request a certain amount of money in their budget. And then the different towns, select board, finance committees and so forth, they actually make a decision on that to present to, well, in our case, town meeting, but in Amherst, they make the decision, it's a final decision by their finance director and the town council, right?
Town council and town manager. Town manager has more authority. With the
That's a
recommendation.
statutory authority in this case, so.
And Sean Mangano was at the meeting,
uh,
but he did not speak.
Susie, do you have your
Andy
hand?
Steinberg, the
Yeah.
financial, isn't he a financial officer in the town as well?
Yeah,
Sean Mangano is now the finance director of the town of Amherst.
but it's the finance committee that decides how to fund the budget, not Sean.
Right.
It's
Right.
and they were there. That's Andy.
Counselors. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he makes recommendations along with Paul Bolkelman, the town manager. Yeah.
Susie,
So first a question. Andy Steinberg is a town council member, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do they have a separate finance committee besides the ATC?
It's within the council. The
Okay,
council is divided in, and he's a member of the finance committee of the council.
okay. I do think that the other piece will be citizen input, which will pressure the town council to consider what the recommendations the school committee is making and why. And I believe the why is going to be pretty big because I see it as the difference, if they don't support some of these moves, the death spiral of lower enrollment is going to continue. It's already happening and it would continue. So they have to play whatever cards they have to keep people at that school. I think that's why dealing with the facilities matters and dealing with interesting courses and dealing with a lens on diversity that they have the capacity to do. So I feel like supporting the budget is a really important thing. And I believe it's going to come up and how they wrestle it out between the town council and the school is left to play.
yeah, George,
I'm sorry, before you speak, George, could I just ask a question about Kevin? He can come at 7:30. He's in the car now to do the piece you were talking about. Would you guys like him to do that?
Is it necessary?
He's on.
Well, yeah, if he's available, let's have him tie in at 7:30 if he's available.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, George.
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, all good points, Susie. Really good points. I just wanted to point out one concern about all this might be, and I think it's probably a low probability, but if you consider that Amherst is saying that they want a lower percentage increase, but the school committee clearly supports this $3.2 million budget and definitely does not want to cut services. They want to follow Mike's lead and be competitive. That might put them in a position where to get more money from Amherst, they don't want to increase the percentage on the 5-year rolling average statutory. So that is going to put some pressure on them. If they want the budget, that's just the risk that we won't move from 65% to 75 on their recommendation, not necessarily what we would do, but just their recommendation.
I think Andy made that reference to that point during the meeting. He basically, I think, said that they can't afford any increase on the assessment.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And the school committee said, well, come on, Amherst, step up to the plate. Like John Trickey said, pay your bills. But they might feel the pressure to maintain the budget. And that may be the only option Amherst gives them. Either Amherst says cut it or fix the assessment. So there is going to be that tension is there.
That basically happened last year.
Yeah, definitely, and the year before.
And we got 20% increase last year.
We've been getting increases, and I'm saying that this year they might be inclined not to grant us an increase because of if Amherst locks in. They didn't seem like they would do that clearly, but that is a risk here. I just want to point that out.
George, I think that you're absolutely, there's no doubt they're going to do this. Andy already indicated it. And the idea that Shutesbury's request or whatever have you, their strong request to increase to go down the road to statutory method a considerable distance will be resisted on exactly those terms. That it's our fault if the budget's cut, but whether it's not really connected directly, it'll be put in those terms. However, I think we have to do what we did last year. And guess what happened last year? Amherst had an opening position where they said they weren't going to increase more than 2.5%. Everybody got together, everybody talked. Amherst didn't, I won't say caved, but they gave. The school altered the budget a little bit. They found some money here or there. We got our 65%, and we resolved the issue. We're going to have to be prepared for the same kind of dance this year, I think.
Yeah, Jim, and then Susie.
Just a brief question. Do we have any idea how many Amherst students choice out of the Amherst regional school system and go to the Chinese immersion school or whatever? Do we have that number? Does anybody know? I'm just curious. I'm trying to evaluate their claims about how important it is to prop everything up because we have to keep our kids not from doing this. But that number has never been given. I just wonder how many.
I believe it was in some of their reporting because even in what they just presented, they had charter school numbers. The dollars are pretty high of what they're losing to charter. I'll go back and try to find that.
Becky, could you see if they have choice in as well in their enrollment numbers?
Okay.
Because I think those are significant facts for us to understand. Look, I don't really understand or particularly agree with the notion that they should be in a competitive market for students. I think we at some point have to understand how many students do we have in the region that are our responsibility, and then what does those demographic shifts that we're all undergoing in the whole of the state, and particularly the western part of the state, what do they mean for the future? And we should be looking at that and getting a grip on that. Because competing for poaching other people's students is not necessarily either ethically okay or sustainable.
But it's legal.
It's
And
legal,
it's
but
not
that
all
doesn't
the
mean it's
time.
right. I mean,
Yeah, but they're poaching employees, they're poaching students.
It's what the state wants. That's what the state's doing to try to improve the level of education.
Susie, and then me.
Thank you. Two things. Peter Demling talked about doing some campaigning or lobbying our legislators because of the way the school choice funding is bad. I was thinking about some of the concepts behind it is supposed to be the stick that improves public education. Amherst does not have problem with its public education. It has a problem with too many options for people to go off and go to choice out. And so the system doesn't work. I would maybe like to hear from Peter how he's framed it, and so that we could also lobby our legislators that this is a problem and it's reaching into our space as well. The other thing is Lynn Gresmer said that we have to build a school and a library and a DPW and something else. And it's like, lucky you to have those choices. We're struggling to get our facilities here, our library, our roof. Good luck with getting the funding for that middle school roof. I'd be surprised if they got it, since we've been turned down 4 times. But anyways, I feel like she sees her struggles, and you can appreciate her struggles, but they're not like our struggles. We're working hard to get our capital plan together, and we just saw a really big capital plan for the regional school that we have to figure out how to incorporate.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as well.
Yeah, and my comment, there was a comment earlier about the numbers and what the numbers that they're losing, Amherst is losing. And I'm not sure what the number is, but just their actions. If you take a look at their actions and their need, or their perceived need to add courses, that's all about competition and trying to maintain competitiveness. They see themselves as losing some competitiveness, and they're trying to find ways to regain that. And I don't think in this environment of very tight money, they wouldn't be out looking to add courses unless they really felt this threat.
They do feel the threat. It's real.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim.
Was anybody struck by the amount of money that we're going to have to come up with to fund their capital requests? I mean, that track and field rink that's a rather big number. Now, I guess last year we kicked in, or this year we kicked in, what, 310, was it 31,000? But isn't that going to go up rather dramatically? I mean, that track's going to be pretty expensive, depending on which option is chosen. That sort of caught my attention.
I think that's why they're going after, they have been already talking to CPC committees in all 4 towns.
Yeah, but
to help fund it without it being a straight budgetary issue.
Yeah, but our CPC, although we do have a lot of CPA money, it's not going to cover, what is it, 85,000 if they choose the middle option. It'll cover maybe a portion of it, but certainly it just looks like we're going to have to spend more money on that front than we have in years past. That's all I'm
I
saying.
think we have about 400,000 in CPC.
Yeah, at least 300, if not more, going up all the time, and we don't have any way to spend it. So, but we can't. We can only spend so much on that track. We can't just take the whole, spend it all on that.
Well, you can spend 70%. You can spend the undesignated balance is available to spend on
70%.
Yeah, and then it's like 10%, 10%, 10% each year is allocated to the other 3 categories. So it's
70%.
And
I thought
some
it was
is allocated to administration. Right?
no, the administration isn't even in part of the base. The administration is a budget item.
70%.
So when
But
are we going to,
I could be wrong. I'll check with the
I think it
expert.
comes out
that's
of-
not what Rita said, Becky. She said something far less than that, I believe, but that's my
Yeah.
recollection. But I want to say, when are we going to discuss? When are we going to discuss the 3 options that were presented, and when do we get to look at that and weigh in on that? Because there's an incredible difference between option A, which is to rebuild the existing facility in the orientation that it's in, and option C, which is to build a whole new facility with a different magnetic orientation, so that there's, like, as someone pointed out, there's plenty of money in there for sunglasses for people that are facing the sun, because that's a $3 million+ difference in cost.
Yeah, I think, Bob, before they throw it out for the towns to look at, I think they want to flesh out the financing options.
Yeah,
And until they get to that point, once they get to
Right.
that point, then they'll throw it out there.
Okay, so we don't talk
No.
about this until that time.
That would be my sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Susie,
Do some of the capital plans that they've laid out, do they get interlaced to our capital plan?
No, it's handled separate in the budget.
Yeah, there's a whole line for it.
Yeah, it's
But-
all debt excluded and it's handled separately. We can add it to it, but we don't have the same authority or control over it.
Mhm.
It's
Um,
also a straight split, right, per student? It's not statutory or any of those other.
No, it's not.
No, it's based on our
EQV.
It's
EQV, right?
EQV, it's better, it's closer to what we've been pushing for.
Right.
Yes, yeah, it's consistent with the statutory, except it doesn't have the income piece. It just has the property value piece.
I see. Yeah.
Okay.
But it is a low percentage, which is good. I think what's important here, expanding on what Susie's question is, regardless of where they are this spring, when we're doing our planning for capital items for warrant articles in April, if that's when the annual town meeting is going to be, we are going to need a long range plan and know where this fits in so that we can decide how to handle our free cash, our stabilization, and how much more debt we might have to pick up. And the CPC that's wonderful that they're involved, and Rita sounded pretty positive on that, but we need to know. I mean, we're going to need to know about that.
It's definitely gonna need to be an upcoming agenda item for the finance committee.
yeah. Okay, so next steps. Someone said the next school board meeting is what, January 18th?
Regional school, yep. And it's
the-
not on their calendar, but the other meetings are at 6:30.
And maybe one of the outcomes from that meeting will be setting up another 4-town meeting. Does that sound or
Mhm.
possibility?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so those are next steps, possibly.
I just wanted to get everyone's thoughts about the comment made by the school committee member near the end of the conversation. I don't recall her name. She pointed out that folks were lobbying for the assessment method that benefited them the most. And I really felt like I would have, if it had been in person, I would have talked to her personally about what Shutesbury, the path we've taken, and how the statutory is a fickle beast. And while we benefit at this point in time, we have rising property values. So our push for it is more, is about the equality and not just about, because we know it's not always going to benefit us. At least I believe that. I'm not sure if everyone does, but it's about having a method that's consistent and using the 5-year rolling average. You can clearly see the difference in percentage between that. It's so much lower than full statutory. It just felt like she needed to have more information. I don't know
Yeah.
what you guys felt.
I had a similar reaction, and it made me think. I mean, I don't think there's any town that showed more sense for understanding where the other towns are than us, in the way, and it shows in the way we've responded over the last several years.
Exactly. You're right.
If we were
$2
just
million
thinking about
worth.
ourselves, we were just thinking about ourselves, we would have been a slam dunk 6 years ago.
Right.
That's
So
exactly right. And that
No.
just shows that she doesn't know the history, and it shows
She
that the
doesn't, no.
history has not been migrating into the.
yeah,
need
I
to
sort of feel
integrate.
bad that the forum didn't allow for any response to those types of, that type of a comment, which was a little.
She's a new member of the council, I believe, just brand new.
Yes.
But
But
they
you're
were
right.
only allowing school committee people to speak at that point.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
There
Yeah,
wasn't any school
yeah, there
committee-
was no forum for us to respond to
wasn't.
that. Yeah.
Another thing that struck me was that Andy Steinberg went through his whining about the town of Amherst, and now they have these pilot money from Amherst College and UMass and Hampshire, and they don't really have much. And so poor little Shutesbury is supposed to stand in for UMass. So I'd just like someone to suggest to Andy, why don't you take this to UMass instead of taking it to Shutesbury? I mean, UMass has a considerable amount of resources that Shutesbury does not have. And, you're talking about UMass students here. You're not talking about Shutesburyites.
Susie,
I know that Amherst has tried to create some kind of rule that I think colleges, I think it's general, have to value their property at 25%. And let's see, I sent Jim an article that was written up in the Amherst student paper. And it was from 2021, so it's pretty current. And they were like, why aren't you paying for the local school? If they're short, pay the money. I mean, here we're in Amherst College. We know all about this. So, so they mentioned that many towns have pilot agreements with their private schools, and they're significant. And Amherst does not have that with Amherst College. So it's not only UMass, it's Amherst College. And yeah, they need to get on that. And I know they've made some effort, but it's not happened. And it's really stark how it's not the same as other college towns.
They just
That was
gave
announced in the
200,000
student newspaper?
200,000. Amherst has announced this week in the paper that they were going to grant $200,000 to Amherst for downtown activities or enhancement or something.
Right. And that's nothing like the pilot agreement for Williamstown, for
Right.
Williams College. It's really, really, really short. And
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
this student article was like ripping into him because like it was so ridiculously off. And
That's
so
great.
here they're getting an applaud for
Wow.
200,000, and it's like not even a drop compared to what those other towns are doing. So
Susie,
the other,
memo to Andy Steinberg, please.
the other thing is to urge Amherst to work harder on that, because like Bob says, it's the difference between funding out of Shutesbury, Leverett, and Pelham versus out of the wealth of the colleges. And I was just thinking about how much housing the university has dropped. It used to have married student housing. I think it's canned all three of their big projects. All of those people had to now go to rent in Amherst. So that is part of why they're having all those apartment buildings being built, which is all revenue. And that is shifting it out of the university. And there used to be some kind of benefit, and now it's out in the public. It's in publicly owned housing. So there's a lot going on, but we all know it's a lot of work to do what you do. And just we could push them on thinking about the pilot.
Susie, did you mean it's moving to privately owned housing from public? Okay.
Mhm. I don't know if the university is providing those poor graduate students with any stipends to do that, but it's not untaxed property now. It's going out into the public. So Lincoln Apartments is gone, Butterfield Terrace is gone, and North Village is gone. Oh, well.
I know UMass contracted with Presidential for the North Village people that had to relocate when they destroyed those. Well, I think they're
Yeah.
taking them down.
They're
at this
gone,
point.
right?
So
They're moving.
they did contract
Okay, so
with
they're
Presidential.
helping their
On the-
students, but they're
Yeah.
also helping Amherst's tax base. And I'm pretty
Right.
sure that's why they're building all those apartments in
That's-
Amherst. And those are all commercial endeavors.
Those 5-story buildings that are littering Amherst Center now on East Pleasant Street and North Pleasant Street and Spring Street, they're all housing $3,000 a pop apartments for graduate students that are mostly foreigners, I think, because they're rich kids coming to UMass. And these people are, this whole process is creating quite a cash flow for Amherst, but if I lived in Amherst, I would be very opposed to it because it's deleterious to the quality of life downtown. These are people that no ties to the community, they live there. And also there's no parking, so the town has to build a parking garage for them now.
And it's just, I'm just talking about Andy Steinberg's position.
Right, he's getting all that money from those places for sure.
How much property they don't get taxed.
It's hard to believe that there's no pilot arrangement with Amherst College, let alone the University of Massachusetts. I mean, That's pretty fundamental.
You know how big their endowment is?
I mean,
Crying out
yeah, it's
loud.
huge.
Interest
Yeah,
on one
billions,
little
billions,
security
billions.
and they could pay this bill.
Yeah.
Well, is that because they're a state organization as opposed to a private? Does that have something to do with that?
No,
Well, one's
they were
private
talking
and one
about
isn't.
Amherst College.
Amherst
private
College.
Private.
college.
And so is Hampshire.
Well, yeah, so I'm just thinking the UMass, because they're a state organization, there might be limitations, whereas, yeah, I would expect Amherst College, they have there's more options with Amherst, I would think, with Amherst College.
Well, the MDC is state-owned land here in Shutesbury, and we have a pilot arrangement with them.
Amherst, UMass has made an agreement with Amherst in the past, and it was updated in 2020. And I think it was 182,000 in the updated amount, and they have a special name for it, but that's the UMass agreement. What's really lacking is the Amherst College one.
Oh,
Just
If
on that,
anybody
Susie,
wants me to send them this article from the Amherst student that was dated May 12th, 2021, I would send it to you.
Let's make sure that student shows up to the next Four Towns meeting.
so I remember a couple of years ago, there was an article in the bulletin about the Amherst College payments to the town of Amherst in lieu of taxes, and it was $125,000, which was like, what? How many houses in Amherst is that the equivalent of? 10 or something. I mean, wow, the property that they own downtown, that is worth so much money. And they have, as you said, George, they have extremely deep pockets.
yeah.
And the other issue about Amherst benefiting from the college is the reason it used to benefit them by getting extra state money for education and everything else, because all those UMass students are low income. They're 20,000 students that make 3,000 a year
Right.
it changes the numbers, and that's
Sure.
that's a huge benefit. It impacts their lottery. It impacted their chapter 70.
Sure.
And I know that they don't get as much as they did, because somehow they've become wealthier despite all the low income. So,
The other thing, Amherst, when they were trying to talk to Amherst about this situation, Amherst said they could leave Amherst. So can you imagine called Belchertown College now? It's like the Boston Red Sox. Hey, come on.
Shutesbury College, come on.
Yeah, come on.
Shutesbury College?
Now we'll talk to Melissa, see if she can get them to move up here.
There you go.
There you go.
Honestly, like we're making all these kind of rational kind of counter arguments to Amherst, but like fundamentally, they're not actually making a very rational argument to begin with, because it's like the bottom line was still that it was a $60,000 impact for them to go from 65% modified statutory to 100%. And it's like, we can talk about, like, we can have all these responses and I'll make all these rational arguments, but like, there's something that's just, it's kind of bewildering to me about their whole position that this move is not sustainable, because of all of the four communities, that it seems like they are sort of least justified in sort of taking that position, because these changes between 65 and 100% have such like minuscule impact on their overall assessment. And whereas, if like anybody should be like maybe pushing back, it would be, Pelham or whatever, but I'm sometimes sort of at a loss to even understand completely where it's coming from in the case of the Amherst contingent.
I think somebody who's been involved in this fight from the beginning and opposed it at the beginning,
Yeah,
and just can't let it go. And he's in the position
just
to keep
stubbornness.
fighting it, and he's just not going to let it go. He's just not going to.
And they have failed to make the capital improvements over the last 2 decades that were necessary, for their elementary schools. And that's huge. And their highway and their other infrastructures, they have not, appropriately successfully done any of that. So now to orchestrate doing 4 major projects in the upcoming 5 years, they're cutting, they're trying to whack every potential other expense to finance it. And it's at and they're willing to make it at the region's expense. For Andy to say that that assessment is not sustainable wasn't even logical. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
To their-
peanuts
to their-
more than what they're paying now.
To their defense, the school dragged through a lot of politics in town and they had failed attempts. And so we know that politics can drag something out and it can make it very difficult. So now they piled them all onto one plate. And that's, yeah, you're right. The regional school shouldn't pay for that.
The regional education of our kids should not pay for that.
Okay. I think we've hashed out Saturday's meeting pretty well.
Well, can I ask if I can contact Peter Demling to find out what kind of legislative letter they're sending about charter funding and how it screws things up? And then I won't say good job if people want me to say that. But
Yeah.
I appreciated hearing from him in that format, because he didn't say it at last year's for town, but he did say it at the school committee meetings, and now he's saying it aloud to us.
Well, I certainly appreciate what you're saying, and I appreciate his position. They do a lot of great things, and we don't send them letters for the other great things they do. And just because we found an ally who's willing to bang the same drum as us, us running right to them and saying, oh, thank you, when we don't think of for other stuff. And, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that too. And he did have somewhat, he sort of backed off at the end of his statement a
Yeah.
little bit.
Definitely walked it back.
He did say everyone has their own definition of what's fair, I think, sort of along that lines,
Yeah.
which I thought he backed off quite a bit.
Okay,
Um,
is it okay if
Susie?
I contact him about how he's lobbying about charter? Because we're not doing it.
Sure.
and I think we should do it.
Susie, the other issue that Demling brought up at the prior meeting was the potential loss of
Grandfather.
grandfathering. And that's a huge issue. If that happens, Amherst loses millions.
Yeah, it's called hold harmless, right, Becky?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the hold harmless agreement that's currently in place with Chapter 70, that's under attack. And it's been delayed because of COVID, but it's still lurking out there. And it's a path that many in the eastern part of the state see to redistribute Chapter 78 across the state. And the fact that Amherst has so much is, again, the result of the low-income students. And if we do lose it, that's a
devastated.
couple million to the region,
Yep, it's devastating.
maybe more.
Really.
So it
Yeah.
may be, if you talk to him, maybe ask him if he is doing any lobbying in that area too, that we could support.
Okay,
It's kind of interesting, Becky, you pointed out before that they have all these students that bring down that actually affect the amount of Chapter 70 money they get because the students are low income. But those students aren't at part of their tax base. So, they have a much better tax base profile
Right.
than you might think if
Mhm.
you look at the math for the Chapter 70 money. Because they have good assessments in their residential real estate right now. They've
But
gone
when those students do their income
It's
tax
in-
returns, their residence probably isn't Amherst. So their income is probably, they're living
There are
here.
a lot. There's like 50% are, in the Amherst area, not living in dorms.
And that's their primary residence on their tax returns, you think?
Yep.
Right, yeah.
Oh,
right.
okay, all right. I figured most of them went back home and they were using, some other city
lot
in
do.
Massachusetts.
But then juniors, seniors often rent in the area.
Yeah, through the summer.
And
Is
like
it-
Susie was talking about, they've moved, they are moving, UMass is moving people out of UMass housing into the private market.
But Becky, let me ask you, I'm not sure about this. If I live in a dorm, am I a resident of Amherst or not?
It depends where you register to vote.
Yeah, right. Well, I couldn't register to vote when I was in the dorms at UMass. I was only 18.
Well, I think the state goes by where your residence is on your income tax return,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Where you register?
Because that's where I believe DESI gets their income number from DOR, and DOR gets their income number from the tax returns, the
Okay.
M1s,
Okay.
right?
So that establishes your
Right?
legal
So it's
residence?
really what they put in their tax return.
Right.
But legally, well, to vote, you have to show proof of residency. And if you, so if you show proof of residency in Amherst, you would also use that for your income tax.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should. I agree. But I'm just saying it's what they put on their income tax return. And who knows? Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, how many of them actually earn enough money so that they'd have to file a return anyway?
Well, if you make like $3,000, you file to get the extra money, you get paid.
The refund.
Yeah, you get paid whatever taxes were taken out.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're aware of that.
Yes.
Mhm. Okay. Are we ready to move
7:30.
on?
Oh, we're waiting for Kevin, right? Does Kevin have the invite, Becky? The link?
He's been to our other meetings without problem. I assume he can do
Yeah.
it.
It'll be good. In the meantime, we had capital plan review on the agenda. I know the overall capital plan isn't wrapped up yet, but we did talk about at least trying to get an update on where things stand with regard to the capital plan process for this fiscal year.
We had, capital plan was supposed to meet on Monday night with fire and police. Fire is Walter, who had an emergency management meeting that night, which involved the police. And I didn't get it posted in time after I started checking around. So capital planning is scheduled to meet on the 17th. If AJ and Steve can make it. AJ, can you make the 17th?
I can. Yes,
Great.
I was checking on something, but yeah, I can do it.
Wonderful. Okay, that'll get posted. So at the next meeting, we could address that.
Okay, let's see, all right, so we'll just move that to the agenda for our next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, Susie,
Um,
thanks for raising your hand, by the way.
when we had our meeting with the school committee and the select board and the FinCom on the 21st, I think I caught the idea that Shutesbury did not gain the Mass school building loan for the roof again. And it sounded like that's the fourth try, and that we didn't get it again. And this is the one where we're hoping for the second half of the roof, which is leaking just as much as the first half of the roof, or maybe not just as much, but severely. And now the state is saying again, no. And I want to know if that is what is true, and if that means the second half of the roof will probably come into capital planning as a proposal.
Yeah, it's true. We got rejected for a fourth time. The plan is to put in yet one more application. But before that happens, I'm working with Natalie Blaze office and the elementary school to document all the leaks that have occurred that are not related to the gym, since we hope that the gym will be completed in April after, because they couldn't do it over the holiday break, lack of underlayment, it didn't arrive until January. So we are looking at putting in yet another application. We don't know when they will be available. The regular schedule, they would be available now. But last year, they pushed the application dates into May, and then we just got the results in November. So we're trying everything. But Natalie is also working with Joe Comerford's office and pushing the SBA to come out to Shutesbury, here's Kevin, to attend, to walk through and see the roof, and we're gonna push as hard as we can to still, in the long shot, either get potential funding from the current year, since which most of the awards have already been made, but if nothing else, to be assured of a spot in this coming year, and the end of this, kick the ball down the road.
Bob,
Yeah, I just want to suggest, Becky, and maybe you're probably thinking this anyway, but what about Plan B to go forward and do the roof ourselves next year if this falls through again for the umpteenth time? Let's get an engineer lined up and maybe even do some preliminary specifications and drawings, or at least bidding documents, so that we can proceed when the weather breaks and get this thing done. In any case, don't you think that's wise?
I think we can, yeah, I think the approach is parallel, do everything parallel, and I think we've, completing the gym roof and having a good experience there so far. We know we can do this. It's just, if we can save the $700,000 or $800,000, we want to do that. So we want to apply pressure, but we know we have to get it done one way or the other.
But as far as the engineering for the shingle roof, is that underway, or has that been done, or has anything been done?
No, it has not yet been done. It has not gone out to bid yet.
Just all they did was the engineer the gym.
Jim, that was their charge.
So when do we engage the engineer to do specs and design criteria for the back roof?
We can figure out where the money's coming from. We'll have to have money in hand to pay them. So it would have to do it earlier than annual town meeting. We'd have to have a special town meeting, unless we identified funding for the engineering for the whole roof ahead of that.
I think we should probably look at this at capital planning and come up with a plan B that would accommodate any number of facts that as they emerge, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much we can speed it up ahead of the end of April at this point, but because of COVID, having a special town meeting right now is much more difficult than in a non-COVID
But to say
environment.
that it's going to be really quick if we have town meeting at the end of April, it's going to happen pretty quickly. If we had all our ducks lined up and we had a bid for engineering and we just needed to confirm payment, that would be better than just starting the process then, don't you think? I mean,
I
it would
agree.
be good. It's good to
100%.
get going
I think
right
it
now.
worked well last year, and it would be a good thing to do.
what
So
would the
Bob,
engineering?
sorry,
what
Bob,
would-
you're suggesting that this be a capital item that has a warrant during annual town meeting, correct? Or-
Before it.
Yes. Well,
Yes.
yeah, I'd say
Anything
before would
added.
be fine, but if it's impossible to have
Right.
a special town meeting, then I don't see why we don't prepare a warrant for a town
Got it.
meeting at the
Yeah.
very latest.
No,
If
that's
we
a
can
great
do
idea.
something
I think we
sooner,
did.
all the
Yeah.
better.
Is this
Definitely.
is this a town meeting, a special town meeting for the engineering or for the full project?
Just the
Engineering.
and
For the
specs.
engineering, we
But I
can't get
don't
any
think it
bids,
can happen.
estimates even, but
What's the guess on what the cost of the engineering?
I would guess 60 to 100,000. I'm not sure. It was 30 for just the gym. It was started at 22, 23, I think, and then we had to add, we had to add in another piece. I can't remember which piece we added later, but it ended up at 30,000. And it was paid for by, I believe it was paid for by the school. I can't remember at this point, but
it was.
and maybe the school has an extra 160,000 we can ask.
Well, I got a problem with that. That's not the right way to do this, to fund this through their school choice money or whatever. It should be funded through capital process. Don't you think? I do.
I don't know. It depends on the urgency and what tools are available. But that's the hang up. We can't just go out for the engineering because of the money.
Susie?
I have some other questions about this, but since Kevin's here, maybe we can come back to it. And I wrote down my question so I can remember it.
Regarding the roof?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to take a break from this topic and tie in Kevin and then come back? Okay.
Sure.
Kevin, thanks so much for your flexibility.
That's fine. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was on the agenda, but let's see. Becky, you wanted me to talk about the means tested bill. Okay, Shutesbury's bill has yet to have a hearing before the Revenue Committee. The Revenue Committee did in late December hear the statewide bill, which would allow towns to create the exact same thing that we're petitioning to create, only just by accepting it at town meeting, accepting the state law. So that's the one that got heard first before our own. And we are waiting to see what the committee says. The Revenue Committee is about a month behind on all the bills before them. They are just hearing the majority of them in January and February, and have not released any recommendations. There was nobody opposed to the bill, and there were several assessors testifying in favor of it. So that's really the update. I'm trying to get a read on where Shutesbury's own bill is in the queue for a hearing, but they don't have the February hearing schedule out yet. So I can't really tell you right now.
Kevin, would Shutesbury's bill become irrelevant or moot if, depending on how this other bill goes, a statewide bill?
If the other bill passes, we can withdraw ours and just vote to accept it at a town meeting. And we've got the same effect.
And is the
So-
timing, how would they time these? Or is it, how is it likely they would time these bills?
I don't know. Normally, a local option bill like ours gets approved before a statewide one. And we have to see how that statewide one comes out of committee. There's really no saying. In the legislature, is being conducted by Zoom or in their case, Microsoft Teams these days. I mean, the building's closed to the public. It's not open to the public, and getting anything out of the chairman or their staff is very hard to do. I'm quite honestly, we have to look every day to see what the Revenue Committee is scheduling. And what they're doing is they're doing hearings in groups of like 30 and then adjourning for a week.
I think AJ had his hand, and then George.
No, I was asking the same question about whether our bill might just be moot.
But along those lines, the question I had was, if our bill passed before the state bill passed, is there any kind of differences in there? So that if the state bill passed later, it might change the way we have to do things?
The wording is identical,
Okay, good.
other than saying, I mean, our bill says Shutesbury particular. The other one has language in it that contains no town and says that, a city and town has to vote at their town meeting or city council to adopt it.
Okay.
Other than that, the guts of the bill are identical. And in fact, the Assessors Association planned it that way.
Oh, good, perfect.
We actually modeled it on the same bill that I did for Shutesbury. And I'm now chairman of the Assessors Legislative Committee. So before it went in the hopper, I made sure it was identical.
Nice.
Good
And
plan.
by the way, there are 6 to 7 towns seeking the local option this year, and the wording is identical on every one of them, other than the town name. And the Assessors Association made sure of that, because we're pursuing the strategy on the statewide bill is you get 12 to 15 of these things a year. Why not just make it easy on you guys and have less work?
He went under a bridge.
Uh-oh,
Something happened.
that wasn't good.
Oh, my goodness. he
Somebody's
lost the
listening.
Computer just about a month ago. I hope we didn't lose another one.
He
Okay.
made
All
a
we did
sound,
was
right?
oops, they disappeared.
Yeah.
Most people just freeze. That was exciting.
Yeah.
Thinking maybe his battery died down there, so.
Really?
Susie,
So can I just go back to my question about the roofs? I
Sure.
wonder if other towns have roofs of our vintage. I'm curious who's getting a roof and who isn't. And I wondered if the middle school roof is of our vintage. I can't believe that the answer is you put on shingles and then they say, well, they got to last 28 years now. And I can't even remember how many years we started at. I think it was 23. Do you remember, Becky?
24. We started at 24.
We started at 24. It had
And
to
it
last.
was, and they
24
went to
years.
25 that year.
Uh-huh. And
But
so,
the language in the letter said anything over 20 years.
yeah.
And then they looked at what came in and added up how much money they have and decided how old it had to be to knock
I
as many
I
people
wondered if
off.
there was a building boom back when we built, and what's the status of all those roofs and how, whether the state's just backing away. That was the question I tried to ask Bruce on his last night. It's the state often appears to be handing out money and then taking it back in another place. And this is a big one because these are buildings that are now a certain number of years old. And you didn't put shingles on that were going to last 30 years. You put them on what was expected. And so other towns might be facing this and maybe having a little bit of unity to go up against the Massachusetts school building program to say, you can't do this. You can't cut it out now. You've already put those buildings in play.
The trend is that the majority of the money is going to 80 million and $120 million projects, like a new high school in Long Meadow, or a lot of new buildings out east are being funded for wealthy communities. That's the trend. Oh,
Back?
Kevin just texted, apologies, computers started updating without warning.
I think we got the information from him anyway.
Yeah, I don't think we need them. Yeah.
Just thank him.
Yeah,
I will thank you.
give him our thanks.
So the lens for that model that they're building new buildings but not taking care of the old ones, that's a framework that Natalie would probably be willing to work with. And we're not a big town. This is really a significant thing, and we've already taken on part of it by ourselves.
And the strategy that Natalie had last year that she's trying to really hammer home with Joe and together with Joe this time is they want to change the legislation to, or the policy of the SBA to base not on number of years, but on the condition of the roof, which just makes a lot of sense, but sense isn't, the number of years, it's just so much easier for them. It's less work. They don't have to go out and look at anything when they don't have to analyze anything. It saves them a lot of time just to be able to manipulate the age to cut out projects.
Do they give us any
Yeah.
information, or is it just is there a scoring rubric or something, or they just give us a rejection with no explanation?
It's just
So it's
the
just
year.
a strict year cutoff. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob,
The year,
just wanna-
whatever year they need, they choose.
Make the
a year
numbers
to
work,
knock off
yeah.
projects.
Just, we, on the building committee have been looking at this for many years. I don't know how many years it's been, Becky, but I'd say it's been like 7 or 8. And we discussed this, and
Right.
yeah, despite what we think with the state, if the state's not gonna give us the money, we have to put a roof on the school. The roof, the school needs a roof. And let me just say this, and if we do it with the state money, there's a whole different protocol and a list of necessary sort of methods that we have to use that make the project more expensive than it would be if we did it ourselves. We did get a bid from a local contractor. We've learned that DCAM is required for projects of this size. I believe we would have to hire a certified DCAM contractor, and we would have certain protocols we'd have to follow, but they wouldn't be as rigorous as they are when we accept state money, because we wouldn't be under their program. So we can do the job ourselves, and we have to at least advance a plan B so that we can get this damn thing done, because we could find ourselves having damage in the building, you know? It's going on way too long. They're gonna rely on the state. They've already proven they're not reliable as a source of revenue. So hopefully we get the money this year. Hopefully we do it at a savings. But if we don't, we do the job anyway, I think, and we get it over with.
You know,
Susie, do you have your hand up?
Well, I think we've already covered that. We've talked about how we're going to at least get through the engineering and specking, and we would look at town meeting to put that warrant article up. I do think, I wondered if the MSBL money is a loan or a grant, or
Grant.
it's a grant. And so I do think it's worth to pursue grants, but it doesn't mean we stop our plan to be as ready as possible. But I do think framing some of the issues should go to our legislator. The idea that they were there to fund our building, but not to help us keep it up and pretend that there's no problem. And so Natalie, showing what the problems are is a really important piece. But the state really should not abandon this vintage of buildings, because I'm sure there's a fair number of them.
Is any of this infrastructure built out there? Is any of that a possible source of funding?
the federal money, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Federal money.
HVAC.
And ventilation, not
Okay.
new construction or roof repairs.
Okay.
By the way, just going back to the four-town meeting, Amherst did mention how they did put considerable money into their HVAC and a whole building ventilation system, and it was paid for with money from the feds or through the state's auspices, federal money paid for it. We got to get on that. We got to get that lined up. We got to get that in our sites, and that's something we're definitely qualified for, and it fits well into the issues that are around school buildings right now. You know, the mayor of Chicago gave the federal money to the police union retirement fund, but I think we should go after ventilation for our school.
Mm.
And that's really a legitimate purpose that's been outlined by the people that framed this bill. And I think we got to find a way to get our hands on it and get that work done this year. If we can, I think it would be a really improvement of the building. And I don't think there's, as far as I understand it, Becky may know more, but I read some of the emails that Natalie Blaze and Comerford sent us, and I didn't see anything about roofs in there.
Mhm.
I did see a lot about air purity, HVAC controls,
Yeah.
all the rest of that. Those are legitimate.
Bob, you're
purposes.
referring to the money that that the Boston Globe had a big long article about last July? And they said, we have a ton of money that is going to go for, HVAC upgrades throughout the state. And, if we don't get in line for that really quickly, we're going to lose out. I stressed that then, and I stress it now.
I don't think there's an argument about that.
No,
Yeah.
well, let's
There's
be
no
sure we
opposition.
are on that case, because that's free money.
Okay. All right, so we'll pick up capital planning in our next meeting.
Yep.
Between now and then, the capital plan team will be meeting. Okay. Expense report review. Anybody have anything on expense report?
We didn't get a new one, did we?
No,
Yeah.
the one that was mailed
23rd.
out on the 14th, wasn't it, or the 16th?
Oh, I see.
So it's almost a month old.
I thought we had one from the 23rd of December.
It says the 23rd, but I think Becky actually sent it a couple days before then,
Oh,
because it's usually they're dated for like a.
yeah, that was the
Becky
last
sent it on
one.
the 23rd. No, it was sent on the 23rd by Becky.
I think it was, I think it went out earlier than that, because according to my email on the 14th, but whatever. The one I'm looking at here is 12/23/2021.
Well, we had one on 12/14, so this is 12/23 one follows it.
It didn't look a whole lot different from the previous one, honestly. I mean, in terms of any hot lines, you know, any
No.
lines that look like they need discussion, it looked pretty much the same. Nothing new popped out from what I saw.
Becky, what is the story on the money that we were late in applying for, the grant for the culvert engineering that we were supposed to get money from the state to pay for that, about $80,000?
I'm sorry, what are you talking about, Jim?
Well, there was last fall, wasn't it? We were late. We missed a deadline for applying for money to pay for the engineering that was done for the Lockspawn Road culvert. And I was wondering whether, and I think the
I'm
select
not sure
board,
where you got that information at all.
well, from select board meeting. It was a part of the select board meeting. I don't have it in chapter and verse right here, but
Yeah, no, that's not computing at all for me. We received a $500,000
well,
grant.
I know we received that, but there was
That's the only grant that we applied for. We did not apply for a second grant. There is not a second grant available. That paid for the engineering and is paying for $350,000 of the construction of the culvert.
well,
But
this,
I'm happy, you know, if you want to share some information, I'm happy to.
All right,
try to
well, I
figure
don't-
out what you're talking
I
about.
don't have that, but there is something that wasn't, a deadline was missed or something like that, having to do specifically with just the cost of engineering, which we could have apparently gotten in addition to the 500,000. But I
have
don't
no
have the
knowledge
facts and
of
figures.
Anything of that nature.
No.
And I don't know why we would be applying in the fall of this year when we already had completed the engineering a year ago or 6 months ago. Doesn't add up. Whatever information you have, I'm happy to talk to you about it, but I don't understand.
Okay, well, I'll dig into the matter and I'll bring it up next time.
I'd appreciate a conversation with you about it.
Well, I'm sure you'll have one.
Okay, anything else? Expense report. I think like somebody said, I think the 23rd of December was our most recent.
I'm sending out the one that I'm sorry, over the holidays, I missed the one. I just searched and found it, and I'll send this one for our next meeting if another one doesn't come before it.
Okay. Sounds good. If we have nothing else on expense reports, committee updates? Bob?
I can tell you the building committee, we finally got the sliding glass door in the school during the over the Thanksgiving break. And so I think it's okay. I haven't heard anything.
All right.
So, it went in smooth. It was a good job and that was easy and complete. So I think we got that off the list. Capital planning, we don't have any, we haven't had any meetings. So AJ can tell you that we're meeting, I think Monday, right, Becky?
Yeah,
Is it okay to meet on Martin Luther King Day? Is that okay?
I'm sorry?
It's a
It's-
holiday, do you know
we
that?
try to avoid it, and I'm happy to reschedule if people want us
It's not
to.
like, I don't have a problem with it because I won't be doing anything else, but I just thought it might be an issue for somebody, but
It's a day off for you, Becky, isn't it?
It's an issue for me, but I gotta keep things moving.
Yeah, what groups are you meeting with during that meeting? Bob
Police
or AJ?
and, is it police and fire?
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah, police and fire.
Yeah, so we're still gonna have there's still a long way to go here, right?
We have
Well-
a new request. So we're meeting again on the 24th. I think with the remaining parties, it'll be a longer meeting because we have a 5th request for a software upgrade for accounting and And yeah, for accounting, it's the treasurer and the accountant.
Becky, I wanted to ask you a question. Maybe this is the right time to do it, maybe not, but I recall that when we had the treasurer or the accountant here, they wanted to add to their budget for new software. So is it going to come from both the budget and capital, or should it rightly come from capital, or is it, as long as it's not redundant?
There's a major investment, and then there's going to be there's different ways to finance it. But there'll be an ongoing annual expense, like all of the software, proprietary software has, which will be higher than they're currently paying. But the current software they're using is not going to continue to be supported, so they don't really have an option. They need to move to another software.
Yeah, but I recall when they presented to us that they said that. So I'm just trying to sort out. So I'm sure these software companies like you to both buy it and rent it, but we all know this, but.
Well, there's installation fees and stuff that are
Yeah.
heftier. And again, there's different ways to finance it,
I
but
see. So maybe
overall,
they
it
could,
costs us
maybe they
about
can explain that
30,000.
to me at the meeting on Monday, so.
Yeah.
I can
Well,
understand. it
we were
better.
not covering that on Monday, but I can get
Okay.
I can get the information and email it to you that Gail put together.
Thank you, great. Wanted to ask you on the FERCog has released money for the bridge training for the academy for police. Is this the right time to discuss that? I understand there was a memo that there's money available for us.
Yeah, I
And
think they
you-
got about 100,000 through Joe Comerford's office, and I believe Shutesbury's portion is $4,000.
That's it? Is that going to be enough for one training, one person or something, or?
Well, the way we're able to do it, which is where we're absorbing the time into the current payroll, like, and out, people are studying when they have break time, or so the cost is primarily ammunition and I think the EVOC has additional costs for, EVOC is the vehicle training. So the vehicles have to be on site for 2 weeks at a particular facility. Again, that's not a dollar cost to the department because they have the vehicles, that they're using the vehicles. So we're able to manage this in a much cheaper way than we do when we go to a full academy. So the $4,000 will cover the out-of-pocket ammunition expense that we had, which was the largest. And so we have 2 people in the academy, Bridge Academy right now, and they're closing in on being halfway through, and both are doing very well.
Okay, so we're not going to get, we're going to get that money. We're not going to miss out on it.
Oh, no,
But-
we're not
So
missing out on
EVOC, so what does
assistance all
EVOC
over.
stand? What does EVOC stand for? So many acronyms. Has there been a great
Emergency
upsurge in
Vehicle
acronyms?
Operation something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the 4 is not bad.
Hey, I tried. Jim, you're the chairman. I'm
Yeah.
calling you.
I'm calling on myself.
Okay.
Just going back to capital planning for a second, did I hear that the 17th and the 24th is 2 different meetings for capital planning?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and-
Jim, there were 4 departments that submitted requests. So this is not including the new request that Becky was just talking about for the software. So it's the school and highway, which are going to be at the meeting on the 24th, and then fire and police. Is that right? Yeah, that are on Monday's meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so by the 24th, you'll have heard from all groups that are looking for capital.
That submitted a request, correct, yes.
Okay, because I think we'll be planning to meet 2 weeks from now, which would be the 25th, the day after your second meeting.
Yep.
Would that be an okay time to bring in the capital planning team? Bob?
Yeah, I think generally our process is that we meet with the people that are requesting funds. And then we have another meeting where we discuss the request, the
Yeah.
committee So we need to have that meeting before we come to finance, I believe, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it'll be early February before the capital planning is ready to speak with finance committee, or mid-February.
Okay,
Yeah, because Jim, when we meet with the departments, they're gonna obviously explain the request, what they're asking for, and they're gonna share presumably specific bids or estimates that they've received. It's not really a discussion among the capital planning committee members about, whether it's sensible to move forward with or not. That usually happens, yeah, as Bob was saying, in a follow-up meeting.
yeah, so the capital planning team would plan to try to meet sometime a week or so after that 24th meeting.
Right, and
Couple
then we
weeks.
can
Like that,
discuss
yeah.
requests and vote on them.
Yeah.
It's usually 2 weeks later.
Yeah, we need
3
time to
weeks.
like review the documents and maybe do some due diligence or whatever, you know, so.
Yeah, okay,
They usually have to ask for a bit more information on some of the items.
Exactly.
Susie,
So we might pencil it in for, well, we have a meeting listed for the 8th and for the 22nd of February. We might either try to meet in between that and wrestle with the capital plan, or wait till the 22nd, which is our regular scheduled meeting.
yeah, maybe we can decide on that on the 8th, during the 8th meeting.
Yeah.
We can sort that out then.
Mhm.
Susie, I
Okay.
don't know if you should bring this up to the school, but the other issue that I brought up about the school roof engineering funding, I think should be brought to capital planning. I think there should be some provision to pay for that. Because it's going to be, it might be something that we don't need, but if we do need it, we need to have a way to pay for it.
So when they come on the 24th, were they going to talk about the need to start trying to move the ball down the field for the second portion of the roof?
I
No,
think so, yes, they should be, yes.
I don't think that was on their list.
No, but I think we want to get that ball
Right.
rolling. So I don't know what the best way to do that is. If you could talk to them about it. Do you go to the school committee meetings?
Yeah. Mhm.
Would you do that?
Yeah, it's probably going to be on the 20th. I will.
Okay, any other committee reports? School,
No, not the school, because of the
Oh.
sequence of things. I think I talked about whatever school stuff came up last time, although I will say COVID is again dominating people's energy and strategizing, et cetera. But I am on the police study group, as is Melody, and I'm on the FinCom part, and I can say it's been a long process, and they're going to meet this week for a brief meeting to approve a survey to be sent out to the citizens, and hopefully they will get the results back tentatively. We're talking about surveys back on February 14th. And then there's going to be a process of looking at what information came back in there. So it's been an arduous committee process.
yeah,
Susie, can I ask you a question about school though?
Yeah,
So when they presented their budget to us, there was a disconnect between how much they said they were funded by with school choice funds and what they had in the budget, and they were going to go back. Has there been any resolution to that? Do we know what's going?
I spoke to Bruce about it. Susie, do you have
no,
that information? I can give the update.
yeah, you give it.
So Bruce, when he was handing off his last stuff to the union, stopped by, and he said that the reason there was a disconnect, that the grant money that was listed on that item, he had been unaware that the school was going to use that grant money or the choice funds for that. I can't. And so what it really means is a reduction of $28,000 to their
Excellent.
ask, which
Excellent.
means we're under $30,000 requested from the school, dropping the percentage in half. Unless they change something, but I'll be all over them if they do, because that's what it should mean.
And that, yeah, and that's what it looked like was going to happen. So it's really, I'm glad to hear that. And that was a number 28. I remember that. So that's great news.
It's great news, yes.
And did the new person start at U28?
Yes, with absolutely no overlap with Bruce. They called Bruce the morning she started asking for his passwords after they had a week to set up her passwords. So we have a new person.
You met her?
And it's gonna show as a problem for a while. You know, it's going to be like small towns do. There's shared people and new people and people learning, and it's going to be that way. That's part of our life.
So, but at least he got the budget done, and it's good news for our town.
Mhm.
It's not, the one other big budget issue that I think I've mentioned before is our hauling contract will be up the end of the year. We tried to get an 1-year extension on it. We were unable to do that. If this is all, if I'm repeating myself, please let me know. They are the company that was responsible when we had a trucker accident. I mean, one of our drivers got injured and lost his foot on West Pelham Road. They are now saying they will not do backload hauling anymore. They don't want to have, they will only do automatic side hauling for a municipal contract. They gave us a quote to do a side loading automated hauling of $142,000 for the first year, in comparison to the $66,000 we are currently paying. Needless to say, we're looking into every other possibility. The recycling committee today put together questions for haulers and an RFP. They reviewed what they've been working on, and will be talking to haulers to try to get a sense if this is true for all the local haulers, or if there are haulers that will do back end hauling. And I'll make sure you guys get continued updates because this is we have gotten away with a very low price for our hauling for 10 years. 10 years ago, 1 out of 4 bids came in at almost half as much as the other bids because they calculated 1 truck, but they didn't realize they had to have 2 trucks until after all the contracts were signed. So they lost money hauling in Shutesbury for 5 years. And that was followed up by our good fortune. We only had 2 bids on the next time we went out 4.5 years ago. And fortunately, we got 1 bid that started about under 60,000. And the other bid was, I believe, 135,000. And I think there was a 3rd bid in the same range of the over 100. So we've been dodging this bullet, and we will do all the work we can to see where we can come out, how we can come out the best on this round.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, I just want to say, Becky, you probably know this, but on Pelham, I see that they pick up trash on Thursdays, and they don't seem to have one of those automated, things where you have to have a special trash can and all that. They seem to just do back loading, as you call it, or just side loading, whatever. They do it by manually.
Yeah.
So maybe that contractor, whoever he is, I'm sure that that will be he'll be involved in the bidding process, but
I think it's Amherst Trucking.
yeah.
I'm not sure, but I think it
Yeah.
might be Amherst
think it is,
Trucking. I think we've lined up 3 bidders to, that are gonna be interviewed on Friday and Monday. That are.
Because if we get one of those backhauler guys, I mean, automated ones, then everybody has to get a new trash can. And everybody, it's one size fits all type of thing, and it's a lot more cumbersome a system. It's.
And it's not just one, you need one for the trash and one for the recycling.
Yeah, right.
And the cost of those alone is like $80,000.
Yeah.
When we calculate it out. What
Yeah,
would be
that's bad.
required, so.
Yeah.
So
Susie,
I had one, sorry.
I was just
go
gonna
back,
ask
finish your thought, Becky,
Yeah.
and then Susie.
Yeah,
Well, I had raised an idea to the recycling committee, that's not their favorite, but as a Plan B backup, I'm just doing a napkin run of potential numbers if the town were to buy their own truck, and combine, a position in the highway department as a trash hauler 2 days a week. I was just thinking we could bring the services in under 100 grand and maybe closer to 70. So it's just another idea if we really hit the wall and don't get any bids under 150,000 a year. Does everybody think it's a crazy idea?
No, be
Liability
innovative. That's a
insurance
good
will go up.
idea.
What about having a dumpster down in lot 32 or something, I mean, out in the back or something?
Bob, we remember the one that used to be at the highway department?
Yeah,
too many
Um,
spoiled loads.
the contamination of the loads was very high, and it,
yeah.
that's why we had to put up the fence. People were sneaking in on the weekends from.
Oh, yeah.
Monday.
Oh, yeah.
It was always full.
That makes, yeah, it's a bummer. Yeah.
What about, what does everyone think about it, us getting the recycle team maybe on the agenda? Maybe for our next meeting, because between now and then, they're gonna be going through a number of quotes, and they'll have a lot of information. Is that something we should be considering looking at?
I think you should definitely talk to them. I'm not sure if they'll have any quotes at that point, because the RFP won't be going out for a couple of weeks.
Becky, are you talking to them about your idea, though?
I mentioned it to them, yeah. I
Maybe you
did
could
mention
ask them
it
to report to
Mary.
us when they have something.
Yeah.
Yep, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll just leave it open that we'd like to schedule some time with them when appropriate.
Yeah. And hopefully they will do the analysis that Becky has recommended, because I think it's great, Becky. Be innovative. Let's try different ideas.
Yeah,
Susie?
with climate change, we need, it would be helpful to have more manpower at the highway department. And it could be a way to share the cost of that.
Susie?
So there's 2 points. I wonder if our liability insurance would be hefty, seeing how that
Right.
man lost his foot. And the other thing I wondered, in this day and age that we live in, are there any more or less trash hauling companies out there? Is that affecting the market?
I can address that one, Susie.
Yeah.
The 3 major ones that we have dealt with in the past have been, like, we started out the contract, this last one with alternative recycling, and they were swallowed up by USA Recycling, who
Mhm.
also swallowed up Do So, and Amherst Trucking, I think is about to be absorbed by Waste Management or another major
yeah.
hauler.
That's the trend,
So-
right?
So it is the trend. The little guys are being eaten up.
Right, and then the big guys get to set the prices, and that's why.
Tony Soprano is going to be next.
Right.
Melody?
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there any thought about regionalization of hauling? Like we go in with other towns and pay less?
We have worked on contracts with other towns to get best pricing from where we take our trash. I'm not sure if the hauling, every town, it's all based on mileage. So I think we've regionalized where we can, but I don't think that's been looked at as something that could work very well at this point. Thank you, though, for the idea. I'll check with Arlene about it, who's expert in the field, but I think that's because of the location and mileage difference, and many towns, well, we work together to get where we haul it under one contract, and we worked to do the same for recycling to get those rates down. That's all, those are all regional contracts, but this is a tougher one.
Bob,
Yeah, one option that, well, personally, I just think that we should be careful about starting to hire more employees to do hauling, because, you know, we all know when you hire an employee, you take on a lot of responsibility for that person, and not only now, but in the future. And as Becky said, the liability, if there's danger in the work, it would also be something that would be on us. But what about the fact that other towns, some of them have subscribers only service? That's something that probably should be on the table. I know we're used to having universal service here, but some people it might be useful to at least contemplate the idea of having a subscriber only option for people, and so that people would have choice whether or not to participate.
Susie, and then Becky.
I was there when we went through this last time, which kind of only knows when that really was. And so we looked at the costs, we looked at what part it impacted the tax rate, and we looked at the way the citizens felt about it, and we looked at the problems when people can get away with not having one and throw their trash in the woods. That's why we have what we have right now. It could be re-examined, but those were the main pieces that I remember working on.
Yeah, and I was recalling the history as well, and one of the issues brought up at the time was it was an override vote that originally funded the pickup and that we format that we have today. And there was a strong sentiment earlier on that as an override vote to discontinue the service was unfair to the taxpayer that had committed and is currently paying for it. But other than those arguments, we don't have any issues with doing that.
We're starting from square one, that's all.
Right.
Okay. So Becky, is this something, can you reach out to the recycling committee and just extend an invitation to them to join us
Yes.
when they feel the time is right for them?
I sure can.
Becky, does your suggestion that people have been talking about for the last couple of minutes include buying a truck for this specific purpose? As that won't be inexpensive.
The ones that I found were running under $200,000. So if you're looking at having, the trade-off would be, if we're looking at $150,000, $140,000 a year for paying for the service, you know, that's in 4 years, that's $600,000. So if we were to purchase a $200,000 vehicle, even over 5 years, that's, you know, over 10 years, that's $20,000 a year with interest plus interest. So I think it's even including the vehicle, that was part of the calculation, the vehicle and then the manpower, insurance, and gasoline.
Dump fees.
Well, the
So the
dump
dump
fees
fees is
we
on both of-
already pay,
It's different line. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
different
we
line.
already pay the dump fees, so that part would be, not be in addition.
Is someone taking the lead on this particular option, looking at a town run, or is this
Recycling,
something?
I had a conflict at the recycling committee's meeting when the full committee met. And I don't think Gary or Merrill brought up my concept.
Mhm.
I think they wanted, you know, they're trying to solve it with an existing vendor.
Mhm.
That'd be good.
But they're working diligently to do that, to size up the market. That's why they're doing their phone interviews in this upcoming Friday or Monday to really get a sense of what's possible, what's out there before going out to bid.
Mhm.
Because even if we have to do the side loaders, besides the toter costs, have other real issues for our town. Because if you imagine, there are a lot of places like on Cooleyville Road and other roads where people bring their trash out to a certain location
Sure,
that
right,
could be a
exactly.
distance from their home.
Yeah.
And if they can't just throw two toters in the back of,
Right.
unless they have a pickup truck. You can't even get them in an SUV without hurting yourself, and then getting them out without dumping out all the trash and recycling.
Right.
So that is problematic for even the concept. Even if $140,000 wasn't an issue for the town, the service is going to be a problem for a lot of people.
Right, well, if you have a long driveway, you gotta do the same thing. You gotta wheel that sucker all the way down through the snow.
Yeah,
Yeah, you gotta plow your driveway. And
No,
sand
or I
and
gotta
salt.
get I gotta get one of those self-loaders for my pickup. That's all. No
yeah,
problem.
yeah. But it's and it's not just one toter, it's two toters. So
Right.
Mhm.
No, that's
Um,
that's not really practical for us. I think you're right about that.
yeah, that's the concern. So
George,
hopefully they can find a back end loader.
Well, I just want to be consistent and just say, like I said, being innovative and looking at, as they say, thinking outside the box, looking for new ways of doing things. And if, we're talking about buying a truck, I got to say, Melody's idea does make sense, because sharing that cost with maybe two other towns, and sharing the labor with two other towns. I'm just wondering if the recycling committee ever
that's
has
huge.
conversations with other towns, and if they might want to reach out to those towns and say, hey, guys, how's the hauling working for you? How's your contracts look? Do you think maybe it would make sense for us to do economies of scale in the long run? Yeah, I think it's worth pursuing.
And I think like the Leverett transfer sticker program has been really successful. The problem with doing Leverett has never offered pickup
Right.
the way we offer pickup. Everyone has to take it to the transfer station. And so that wouldn't currently be a good matchup, but Leverett reviewed whether they would shift to the pickup scenario about 3 years ago. So they might entertain talking about it, because I know their transfer station has caused a lot of grief for them.
okay, Susie and then Jim.
So maybe it would be helpful if the recycling committee did check out some of the area towns that are small. So there's Pelham, New Salem, Wendell, and Shutesbury. And if we bought the truck and then we were able to use it more than one day a week for our town, then the regionalization economy of scale would fit into that.
Yeah, we'll probably need at least 2 days if we only have one truck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we could only probably deal with maybe two smaller towns or one comparable town in a tiny town.
If you look at it as a region and we're all contiguous, they come up with a schedule. I mean, do they come here? Would they need to be in this town 2 full days, or would it be a day and a half and they just keep moving, so that there's certain areas of Leverett that get picked up on the same day as Montague Road, and maybe Montague Road doesn't get picked up on the same day as the rest of town,
Yeah. Oh, those are all great ideas.
I have an Amherst dump sticker myself, and I can bring my trash to Amherst and I pay for it, but that's another option for people to bring their trash to Amherst or to Leverett or some unknown location. Not my land in Pelham, please.
The unknown location is often used, Bob.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Believe me,
why we want pickup.
I have a road in the woods on my land in Pelham, and people like to bring mattresses in there and
Yeah.
leave them. And so then I go to the Amherst dump and I have to pay big bucks to get rid of these mattresses that belong to somebody else. So I did what Susie said. I said, listen, you should not charge for mattresses. There should be some way to pay for them so the kids don't just dump them in Shutesbury and Pelham,
Yeah. Jim,
Am I right in thinking or saying that this is a small town issue? Because the large towns, do it in-house, so to speak? Is that generally the case?
No, they have contracts.
No, they have
Amherst
contractors
has
in
a
Amherst.
contract.
Well, I mean, like, how about Athol Orange? I mean, I'm just thinking of the Greenfield, whether they do, whether they pay, one of the big companies to pick up trash. I can't remember seeing whether the trucks were native to the town or not.
I don't know of any.
I think most, even Long Meadow, where we had some of the haulings, recycling meetings were held, Long Meadow was part of that. They were working out their own contracts just like we do, and I don't
Oh,
believe their
okay.
haulers were in-house.
All right, I just was curious.
But that's a good question there. We could do
Yeah.
more research
Yeah.
on that and figure out. But what I know, the haulers have had, most of the municipality have used hauling companies that I know about.
Yeah,
But once you get to Northampton, I'm not sure what they do.
Yeah, never mind. I don't think I've ever seen a trash truck over there, though, to tell you the truth. Never seen a garbage truck in Northampton. It's that city of Northampton on it.
Did we have a contract with Republic? And
Yes.
And then we don't now?
Right, Republic, they're the ones who the gentleman
Oh, yeah.
bid one truck.
Yeah.
He left that firm quickly after that.
And they didn't rebid, right? They didn't bid on the contract after that. They just left. Is that correct,
No,
Becky?
I think they put in a bid of about $180,000.
They're trying to make
It
it up
was
in
like,
one.
whoa. It was a makeup. We're gonna make our money back from last
Triple
time.
what it was, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had some nice trucks too, the blue ones, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the big one. was
Okay,
a big
we're getting a little off topic here.
Thank you.
No guys like the,
If we could get back to committee reports?
a personnel board hasn't met since our last FinCom, so nothing new to report.
I've been on this the fire department committee, looking at replacement as Walter retires. We've been meeting weekly. There is going to be, they're usually during the day to fit people's schedules, but there will be a meeting tomorrow night to allow for town input. So I think it's 6 o'clock tomorrow. Does that sound right, Becky?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
6 o'clock tomorrow evening, there will be the next meeting on this topic, so to allow for more people to participate from the town and to be heard from. And then Kristen and I are working, we're going to be meeting with the members of the volunteer group. We're putting together some questions, and then we're going to meet with them to get their views of the department, where it is, where they see it, where they can imagine it going and whatnot. The objective overall is still to wrap this whole project up and present something to the select board. I think sometime, is it early February, Becky? Is that what we're aiming
That
for?
would be awesome. That's a goal.
So there's a lot to do between now and then.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
You said meeting with Kristen, the police chief,
Yeah, we're
to
gonna
talk about the fire department?
the two of us are gonna meet with the volunteers and just ask,
Kristen's on the committee
you know,
Okay,
with
Yeah.
Jim.
because the police and the fire work closely together.
Yeah.
yeah, and she's part of the committee. The two of us volunteered to take up this particular action to meet with the volunteers and just like a little questionnaire type thing. Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I was gonna say, one of the biggest item, the most unusual thing this year on the fire department is that maintenance line. And I'm just spewing out what I'm thinking, and it might fit into some of the conversations you have. We pay a full-time fire chief. We're one of the few small towns that do. And one of the benefits of having a full-time chief, I've always thought, was he was doing a lot of things that we might have had to send out to third parties to take care of. We'd have to contract to take care of, including, I find out, I've known this for a while, the maintenance. And so to me, if we plan on replacing the fire chief, I hope the consideration is that he's going to have the skills. This person's going to have the skills to do a lot of the maintenance that Walter did. And it was my understanding, I'm thinking this in my head. I don't know how much of this is even true, but if he's working full time and he's doing this maintenance, then it's a big part of his job. So if we're hiring a fire chief who's going to work full time, if this committee decides that we still need a full-time fire chief, I would hope that maintenance duties would be a part of it and we'd still be able to save some money on that line. So it's just something to think about, Jim, when you're in there. That's really the only reason I'm bringing this up.
Yeah, that's something Walter's on the committee too, and he spent a lot of time in the early meetings going over all his roles and responsibilities, including maintenance. And we made a big list of all of these. And then the question is, okay, this is the list of things that get done. And now going forward, what's the best way to accomplish this list of things?
Got it. Yeah, that's perfect.
Right. So I just want, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
just to echo that, to somewhat expand on it, I think my concept was when we talked about this with Walter, was that, yeah, make a list of what his responsibilities are now and his pay level. And then if somebody else were not going to be able or willing to do those things, then we would find a different way to get those things done and not have to pay him for not doing them. So he might be a part-time position or something like that, you know.
Susie.
I think it would also behoove us to have some sort of research done about how do other towns handle this. I'm sure that it varies wildly from town to town. Our highway department brings people in to do some maintenance stuff. So I imagine other towns have a maintenance program, and I wonder how they do it, and what kind of dollar value that is. And I know that some towns have much older fire trucks than ours. And so whatever research numbers come up, it would also matter what age the vehicles were, and what are the maintenance costs that other towns handle by subbing it out.
Yeah. Yep. Jim.
Well, Leverett is part-time, and although their fire chief is pressing to become a kind of a Walter, from what I understand, and push it into a full-time employment. So there's been some resistance there. That's just one town, how one very local town is handling the situation, or has handled this situation.
Yeah, and
we don't know if they do their maintenance, how they do the maintenance. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's true.
well, there's a lot of there's maintenance, there's emergency response.
Yeah, the emergency response is really.
There's different roles, and this is something we've gotten the data from FERCog, from Franklin County, and we've been taking a look at that to see just how the different towns handle these different types of roles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Some-
see
some
do you
extent.
see the maintenance on their chart, FERCog's chart, the maintenance?
No, they don't have somebody called maintenance.
Yeah.
So whether that's being handled by the fire person, or they sub that out somehow for maintenance, have it done, or some combination. Yeah, that piece doesn't show up.
Right, okay.
And not all, Walter does not do 100% of the maintenance. There's still, like the larger jobs they take it into other specialty shops to do the biggest piece. He doesn't do it all. It's not 100%. So, and the structure of each department in each town is a little bit different. Like we learned in Leverett that right now they have I think a 20-hour deputy fire chief and a 20-hour fire chief.
That's right.
So even though they've split the job into the full-time job of a chief into two pieces. So it's Irving, I was shocked. They have a full-time chief, a full-time captain, and a full-time officer. And Irving is about the same size as Shutesbury, but they have commercial properties.
Yeah,
that-
big one.
Big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, big one.
And they have so they have the tax base to have a much larger department. So it's so unique to the town situation.
And I'm sure those guys talk to the paper mill regularly.
Mhm.
Well, Northfield Mountain is right up the road with a reservoir of water. They could still Put on any fire at that paper mill.
There you go. Okay, back to committees. Susie,
I also went to the municipal vulnerability meeting and we were looking at a list of projects and thinking about next steps for applying for grants. And my suggestion was that we get money to do a really careful, full evaluation of roads, especially gravel roads, and begin to maybe use a grant for some engineering recommendations so that the town has a sense of where it's going. There are monies coming. Natalie Blay and Joe Comerford put out legislation to study groups on, to make a study group for roads, and that should be coming out in June if everything went ahead. But I think there's going to be money for infrastructure, and having the town do a really careful assessment of this, because it's the roads are showing severe wear from not only increased traffic, but freezing and thawing is increasing more cycles of mud and runoff. And so they were working on, there's a Michael DiChiara and a guy, David Green, down from the lake, are going to write up a draft proposal for spend a grant for that project, stormwater runoff and careful assessment of roads, including drainage.
okay. Anything else on committees? Okay, next meeting in 2 weeks, the 25th, 6:30.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And what are the
Okay.
meetings in February?
I thought I heard the 8th and the 22nd for February.
Yep.
AJ, will you please put those in the minutes, just so
Yeah,
this is a reminder?
So are
sorry, it
we
was the 8th, February 8th, and what was the other one?
22nd?
22nd.
And can we be clear if we can meet on Tuesdays? Is that accommodating everybody?
Good.
Okay, excellent.
Is time of the meeting is 6:30?
6:30.
Mhm. So how are we doing in preparing for annual town meeting? Becky, do you have a lot of information to start putting together a budget?
Yep. I will, I will have it ready, I hope, for the 25th.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I'm going to add that to the agenda.
And does it look like town meeting is going to hold to the last Saturday in April, or does COVID look like it will rear its ugly face and make things different again?
That will be a select board discussion on the 18th. We're getting very nervous about being able to hold it in April. If we can't use the school, we can't hold it in April.
Yeah.
Weather would be a problem.
Yeah, a little chilly.
It would have to be a very short meeting, and it does not look like it will be a short meeting.
Never is.
Well, this one's gonna be a doozy, I think. With all the capital items. But hopefully the budget won't be too controversial. You never know.
Up to the school, the region. That's gonna key right now. That seems to be the tough spot.
Yeah, well, and the hauler.
Yeah.
Any news on the library application? When we expect to hear?
The,
There's gonna
Decision
be
on
a
that?
tour. MBLC, I think, is gonna come out and take a tour sometime in February.
Oh,
So there won't be
consider-
word till after that.
Got it.
So that's a little later than,
They said it ended January before.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a new process, and they've been very slow to move forward on each step.
And Otis hasn't backed out yet, it sounds like.
Probably not.
Too bad.
it
I
would
was really hoping.
faster process. If there's only one applicant, but there's still two.
Okay. Do we, hear a motion to wrap up our meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second,
Have a nice day.
Chartier, aye.
Groves,
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. You all have a fine evening.
thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Sayonara.
Thank you,
Happy
everyone.
New Year.
Stay healthy.
Yes.
Yes, stay out of trouble.
Free. Go Celtics.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
you got a minute?